An original.
From Story Studio Network.
Welcome to The Fatigue Fixer, the podcast where we get real about why you're so tired and what you can do about it. Every 2 weeks, we'll gather here for honest, heart-to-heart conversations about reclaiming your energy, your patience, and feeling truly at home in your body. I'm Dr. Sarah Vedmonkar, a naturopathic doctor, Menopause Society certified practitioner, Enneagram 3 entrepreneur with enough business ideas to last me 10 lifetimes, and a hockey and baseball mom. Over the past 15 years, I've helped thousands of women just like you cut through the confusion and finally feel like themselves again. And now, I want to hear from you too. Use the link in the show notes below to leave me a voicemail, to share your story, give feedback on an episode, ask a question, or tell me what's been exhausting you. And your voice might even make it onto the show. Together, we'll get to the root of what's really draining your energy and give you the tools, clarity, and encouragement you need to fix your fatigue. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Fatigue Fixer. Last week I was driving into work and I had a thought. And before I share what that thought is, which is the theme of the episode, I want to take a quick second to encourage you that if you are not creating blank space in your day, and what I mean by blank space is time where you have nothing coming at you. So when I drive, I often drive in silence. And I have the best thoughts and ideas when I'm driving in silence. And you've probably experienced this too, where you are in the shower or you're quiet somewhere and your brain just comes up with the most magical things. And I think a lot of us are really missing out on a rich, thoughtful inner experience because we are constantly distracted. So on my drive to work, I was being quiet and I was thinking, and the thought that came to me was how probably the sentence that I hear the most often from the women that I work with is, I just don't feel like myself. We did a whole episode on I just don't feel like myself about what's happening mentally and emotionally for women in perimenopause. But then the thought that came afterwards, which is what I want to explore with you in today's episode, is which self do we not feel like? When women share with me what they hope to accomplish in our work together, they often say, I want to feel like myself again. I want to go back to how I felt before. And all I could think about in that moment was, why are we assuming that the self that we are right now is the best version of us? Why do we assume that not feeling like ourselves automatically means that we are moving into a worse or inferior version of ourselves? Because what's happening for most of us, and I've kind of called this the awakening that I feel like a lot of women have when we hit our 40s, that we start to look around and we're like, wait a minute, that's bullshit. That's not true. That doesn't work for me. I don't want to do that anymore. And it can feel really destabilizing, especially if you've built your whole life around certain behaviors and certain beliefs and feeling a certain way. And then when you stop feeling that way, our instinct is to do, what can I do to go back? Because even if that place didn't feel fantastic, it felt safe because I knew it. And now everything feels different. And I don't like that. But what I'm going to encourage you to start to think about today is that if you are not feeling like yourself, it does not mean that you are declining or that things are getting worse. It probably means that you're growing and evolving. And what a beautiful thing that is, even though in the moment, it might not feel beautiful, it might not feel nice. This is the one where you stop fighting the aging process, because the reality is this is a battle that none of us are going to win. And the amount of energy and money that most of us are putting into trying to stay the same, feel the same, not allow any signs of aging to show up on our face, in our bodies, in how our brains work, it's draining us. it's a huge energy suck to try to fight a process that's going to happen no matter what you put in your face, no matter what fancy creams and serums you put on you, no matter what fancy exercise or longevity supplements you consume. We are going to get older. We are going to have moments where we don't feel like ourselves. And again, instead of assuming that that's a bad sign, what if we reframe that as a sign that we are growing and changing? The reason most of us don't love not feeling like ourselves, and the reason that we tend to think of this as such a negative thing, is that we live in a youth-obsessed society. Our society is obsessed with things that are youthful, things that are thin, and the beauty standards that we are expected to uphold and maintain as we get older are impossible. They've always been impossible. And now it feels like they're even more impossible because when I look around, so I'm 43, when I look around at other 40-some-year-old women, a lot of them don't have any wrinkles because they have injected them away. They've lasered them away. They've done I don't know what to make their wrinkles go away. And that's okay. But I do want us to think about why so many of us are feeling the need to eliminate and reverse and erase all signs of aging. Because this starts really young. I have women who are blaming their age and they tell me they're getting old in their 30s. You are not old in your 30s. You are not old in your 40s. You are not old in your 50s. On average, women are going to live into our 80s. Now, for sure, my 40-year-old body doesn't feel the same as my 20-year-old body did, right? When I sit all day, my back doesn't like that. And when I was 20, my back was fine. So this is not to say that there aren't very real things happening, and it's not to pretend that aging is all pretty. It's not. But again, when we try to delay and stop something that's going to happen, it's incredibly frustrating. It's incredibly draining. It's incredibly expensive. And one of the things that I wanted to chat about is this trend that we've seen in the last couple of years of essentially girls getting into skincare. And Sephora and other companies are making lots and lots of money by selling skincare to children. And all of us are outraged by this, as we should be. And I think it's been really easy to blame like TikTok and influencers and the internet. And that's certainly part of it. That's probably why it's starting so young. But I also think we need to take a cold, hard look in the mirror and realize that we are a huge part of this problem. We are a huge part of this trend that, yes, girls are going online and seeing these things, but girls are also looking around at how other women are managing this. And even if it's not overt and obvious, and maybe you're not talking about it, when our daughters see us covering our grays, when our daughters see us getting fillers and Botox in our face, when they see us talking about or worrying about our appearance, they are learning from that. And this is not to blame, because we are victims of this as well. Like, we also have grown up in this toxic anti-ageist culture. But I think if we want to be really honest about what's going on, I think we need to acknowledge that we are victims of it, but we are sadly also perpetrators of a lot of this, because a lot of us have internalized a lot of the messages that we've heard and learned around beauty and aging and skin and weight and bodies. We are so steeped in it that we have internalized these messages. And then we actually are the ones, often women are the ones who uphold and continue to perpetrate these really toxic standards. And I can tell you that I was recently in a conversation with women who, one of the women had previously been quite overweight. She had been obese and she had lost a significant amount of weight. And the two other women were commenting on how old she looked now and how her skin didn't look great and she really looked like she aged. And all I could think of was like, we can't win. When this woman was overweight, she was criticized because she was overweight. Now she's lost the weight. So now we can't criticize her there. So now we're going to attack her because her skin doesn't look as nice as we have somehow decided it should. And I was like, what if she doesn't care? Maybe she doesn't care to appear youthful. Maybe she doesn't care that her skin doesn't look however you think it should look. Like, can we leave this woman alone? It's like, no matter what we do, there's going to be something to be criticized about. We are both, again, the victims of beauty culture, but I think if we are radically honest, we also are perpetrators of it. And women can be very vicious, sadly, to each other. And we often are very judgmental about each other because, again, we've internalized these beliefs and now we believe them to be true, even though they are fully made up and completely unrealistic. One of the things that I've noticed that I think a lot about is how, going back to this idea of like, I don't feel like myself. Isn't it interesting that almost all women feel more like themselves and feel better when they're thinner, when they're lighter, and when they look younger, right? So again, when I see a woman choosing to get Botox, I don't judge her. I totally understand why she's doing it. But it is also no coincidence that most of us feel better when we look younger and thinner. Because again, that is the standard. That is the beauty standard that we are all being held to. So when you say, well, I just feel better when I'm thinner, I just feel better when my skin looks frozen. That wasn't nice. When my forehead doesn't move. You have to question why that is. Is it because that's deeply what makes you feel better? Or is it because you obviously feel better because you're meeting the beauty standard and you're going to be praised and rewarded as opposed to criticized? Of course, we all feel better when we're fitting in and meeting these expectations. But that shouldn't be what drives our behaviors, right? All we're doing to make ourselves feel better is continuing to, again, uphold and perpetrate these completely unrealistic standards. So why do we do this? Like, why is all of this happening? Well, again, I said it early, we live in a very ageist society, meaning that we glorify appearance, we glorify youthfulness, and we have deemed those better and more important than things like wisdom and experience and contribution, no matter what vessel it comes in, right? It's like we only value people who appear the way that we've decided is acceptable. And we idolize people who look young. I think it was last week, there was some kind of fashion show and they were showing a lot of like older actresses, like some in their 70s and 80s. And everyone was like, this is so wonderful. And I'm like, it is wonderful. And I would be curious to know how many of those actresses have aged without intervention. Because when we celebrate someone like, for example, Martha Stewart, who's in her 80s and looks incredible and like good for her, but that is not what most 80-year-olds look like. So if that is our new standard of like, when I'm 80, I need to still look like I'm 60, that's not a realistic standard for most of us, especially if we don't want to alter our appearance. And going back to this, I don't feel like myself. We assign such negativity and such blame on the aging process. And this is especially true right now in the menopause space. Almost everything that we hear and see about menopause is negative, right? You're going to gain weight. Your bones are going to fall apart. Your brain's not going to work. You're going to have brain fog. You're going to be depressed. You're not going to be able to sleep, like on and on and on. And again, those are very real symptoms. And this is not to negate or deny women's experiences. But where are the people talking about the upside? Because there is an upside. And it's very well documented that women who are in midlife, which again, midlife is usually 40s, assuming you're going to live till 80, this is the part of our life that is the hardest. It literally, when they look at happiness and life satisfaction, when you're in your 40s and 50s, you're in the bottom of that U. Meaning, most of us have very high life satisfaction early in life. We have very high satisfaction, happiness later in life. And in the middle is the dip. So when you say, I don't feel like myself, instead of trying to go backwards, if we encouraged the process and just allowed what is happening to happen, when we get to the other side of that dip, we are more satisfied with our lives. We are more satisfied with our bodies. We are happier. We are able to think in a way that we were not able to think years ago. So again, are you going to be the one at 50 who's able to memorize everything? Absolutely not. But you're going to bring a level of wisdom and experience that you sure didn't have when you were 25. So why are we so hyper-focused on the physical changes and completely ignoring or negating some of the benefits that we know happen, especially for women as we get older? Again, we have more confidence. We feel more at peace in our body. We have more life satisfaction. I don't know about you, but that is the self that I want to step into. When I don't feel like myself, instead of freaking out and thinking, oh my God, this is terrible. 40s are terrible. This is just garbage. Can I reframe it that I'm in the dip? I'm in the hardest stage of my life, both in terms of what's happening in my life and what's happening in my body. But it's not all downhill from here. I think that's the lie. It's not all downhill. It's actually going uphill. If I cannot fight the process and I can allow myself to move through it and I can learn from it and seeing it as a growth opportunity, I'm going to actually come out the other side feeling like a better self, a more confident self, a calmer self. I can't wait for that shit, right? When I meet women in their 50s and 60s, for the most part, what I hear is like, yes, maybe their knees hurt and their back hurt. Like I'm an optimist, in case you haven't picked up on that. So I'm trying not to like put a toxic positive spin on it, but women do report that they feel better the older they get. And we don't hear that message enough. The other thing that I'm curious about and that I wonder is if our difficulty in accepting that we're getting older is masking our fear of death. I think for the most part, as a society, we don't do a great job talking about death, thinking about death, preparing for death, acknowledging that it's going to happen. We kind of live with this fear of death. And I think not consciously, but I do think subconsciously part of this like obsession with youth and anti-aging is this deep-seated denial and fear that we are going to die. And I think if we had a closer, healthier relationship with death, I do wonder if we would treat aging a little bit differently. This past weekend, I was at a cottage with 3 of my best girlfriends from university. It was actually a beautiful weekend. We were literally swimming in a lake in October. It was incredible. And at one point, the conversation turned to weight. And all 4 of us said, I'm at the heaviest weight I've ever been. And where that conversation could have gone is like, What are you eating? What's the workout? Are you on Ozempic? No, that's not where the conversation went. It literally went, we're all heavier. Okay. And then one of my friends was commenting how there's always that little voice in her head of like, oh, I should do something, right? I should really eat fewer snacks. I shouldn't eat at night. I should da 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 da. But she was like, I'm never going to be the thin person I was in my 20s. And that's okay. And I think all of us felt similarly. And all I could think about when we were talking and when we were together this weekend is like, my friend's weight had zero bearing on how excited I was to see them, on how excited I was to like hang out and reconnect. It didn't stop anyone from throwing on their bathing suit and jumping in the lake. And so if we can offer our friends that grace and acceptance, and like if our friend's weight has no bearing on her awesomeness and her like why you love her so much, why cannot we offer ourselves a little bit of that grace, right? If we can still love our friends, even though their hair is graying and their faces are wrinkling and their bodies are bigger, why can we not offer ourselves a little bit of that? Because my friend's aging, because we met when we were 20s. So like theoretically, let's say like peak, well, though not peak, but peak youth, a lot less wrinkles, boobs were a lot perkier, things were a lot tighter and toned, but that is not the basis of our friendship, right? Our friendship has survived 20 plus years because it's based on something so much more important. And how can we cultivate a relationship with ourselves that is so much deeper and moves beyond our appearance and what our face looks like and how old and how many grays we have, right? What if we could start to offer that to ourselves? I want you to hear from our listener, Cindy, who is 58 years old and is going to share how she has been navigating the aging experience.
I just heard your little reel, and I thought I would share my opinion on aging. I do nothing that is invasive for my skincare routine, and I don't dye my hair. But I have to admit, it is hard. I am 58, and I am pretty much the minority within my group of friends. And I feel every time I go out with my girlfriends, it's the number one conversation as to how we can slow down aging, stop aging, constantly obsessing over aging and comparing. So I do find it hard. I have a very good regime that I use for self-care and supplements, and I try to have little to no alcohol. Alcohol in menopause has been just basically toxic. I try not to obsess over my sleep, but that can sometimes be tricky as well, but I just let it go. Some nights good, some nights not so good. And I really love your information on not using menopause as part of the blame game. We're blaming everything on menopause, and it's not always menopause. So I appreciate all that you do, and I do find every little nugget of information does help with this aging process.
Thank you, Cindy. I think a lot of us can relate. And the part that I want to pick up on, which I can relate to very much, is how hard it is when you feel like you're the only one choosing to age. I want to say naturally, and that's not necessarily the right word, but to try to age with minimal intervention. And that's how I so far have chosen to navigate the aging process this far in my life. I've learned to never say never. Maybe I will change my perspective at some point, but I have consciously decided to not cover my grays. I have consciously decided to not have any cosmetic procedures, to not have any Botox or fillers. I also, if you follow me on Instagram, I don't use filters. And I do that very intentionally and very purposefully because I think it is so important for us to see faces that are aging without intervention. Because again, when I open up my Instagram or I'm walking around on the street, and if a lot of people in their 40s have had procedures to delay or erase signs of aging, it feels really hard to be the one. Sometimes it feels like the only one. I'm like, what's happening to people's foreheads? Why isn't anyone's forehead moving anymore? Right? And then I look at myself and I'm like, I've got wrinkles all across my forehead because I'm a very facially expressive person. So it is really hard when you feel like you're the only one. But the way that I have chosen to think about this, one, is I want to normalize aging without intervention because that feels like a radical act, which is so sad. But like where I live here in Ottawa, I swear there's a Botox clinic on every corner. And again, I get it. I'm not judging you if you've had Botox. But we need to ask ourselves, why do we all feel better when we have no signs of aging? It's not because you deeply feel better, it's because you are conforming. You are conforming to the impossible beauty standard, and that is your right and that is your choice. But then we cannot get upset and mad that the beauty standards are impossible when a lot of us are contributing to and upholding the impossible beauty standards. I am consciously rejecting and rebelling against that by letting my hair go gray, by not putting Botox in my forehead wrinkles. It is a quiet act of rebellion, but I want people, whoever's following me on Instagram, I want them to see what like a normal 43-year-old face and body looks like. And I think if we saw more of that, it would maybe make it a little bit easier to not go down that anti-aging rabbit hole. And so that's one of my calls to you right now. Go through your feed today and look at who you're following and make sure that some of the people you're following, first of all, are like older women. There are so many incredible women who are in their 60s and 70s and 80s putting out incredible content, many of whom have chosen to not interfere with the aging process. So again, when we see that we can contribute and be successful and have so much to offer, despite our gray hair, despite our wrinkles, I think we can slowly start to change the conversation around this negative bent that we have around the aging process. Because what we are up against is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I know I always talk about money, but I think it's really important for us to acknowledge and understand where these systems come from, right? These are not like natural systems, right? If we look at historically, elders were respected. They were like deified. They were the people who you went to for counsel and advice. They were the ones who everyone looked up to and revered. And now, we sadly, especially in North America, when people get old, we put them away, we put them in a home with a whole bunch of other people, and we don't honor, I think, and respect all the life that they've lived, all the experiences that they have, all the wisdom, all the learning, all the things that we should respect and admire. We don't. We're like, what does the 22-year-old influencer have to say? Let's listen to her. And again, nothing against being 22. We were all 22. But why do we think that someone whose appearance looks a certain way is more in the know than someone who's actually lived life and has actual life experience? The anti-aging market, just for your knowledge, is valued this year at $75 billion and growing. And again, if we look at why so many of us feel the need to remove all signs of aging, it is because there is a huge market that stays alive by convincing us that signs of aging are bad, that we will be happier and more fulfilled if we look younger. So it creates and seeds doubt and fear and feelings of not being good enough. And then, of course, it sells us the magical retinol serum that's going to make life better. It is no accident that we are all trying to anti-age, which you can't do. One of my favorite things I saw about aging was this guy who said, you can look old or you can look weird. Because he was like, the people who are trying to like alter their face to not look old, they end up looking kind of weird. Again, I feel like I'm being very judgmental, but it is what it is. The other kind of new slant on this is the longevity. So I feel like longevity is like the healthier, health version of anti-aging. I feel like it's like because diet culture got so poo-pooed, in came wellness culture, which is kind of like a lot of it is diet culture, but it's for your health. Longevity is anti-aging, but for your health, right? We want to stay healthy. And do not get me wrong. I think we could all age better. I think a ton of chronic disease could be avoided if we took better care of ourselves, if we moved more, if we spent more time in community, ate better, like 100%. But the longevity industry, the way that most of it is presented, is it's supplements, it's biohacking, it is therapies that are likely not going to add any significant time or quality to your life. They're just going to drain your bank account. And there's a reason that a lot of the like longevity people are rich men, because they have bajillions of dollars that they can spend on trying all these random different things that, again, are probably not going to make any significant difference in their longevity, and that most people do not have access to. When we look at the behaviors and practices of the people who actually are having longevity, are actually living long, healthy lives, we can look to the blue zones. The blue zones are, I think it's six different areas in the world where they have the highest concentration of people who live up to the age of 100 and more. You know what those people are doing? They're not biohacking. They're not taking anti-aging supplements. They're not slathering retinol on their skin. They are moving their body naturally. They have built movement into their life. They walk places. They garden. They keep active. They eat mostly plant-based diets, but they all include meat except for one, but it's mostly plant-based. And they eat in moderation. They eat till they're 80% full. They're not eating a whole bunch of processed foods and overdoing it. They have super strong community and social connections. And they rest. They have spiritual practices. They're connected to their purpose and their why. And they have a slower pace of life. None of that can be found in a pill. None of that can be found in a red light or a special therapy of some kind. It's literally just basic, boring lifestyle habits done over decades that will determine the quality of your life and how long your life is. So if you want to age well, before you buy another antioxidant supplement, before you get a cold plunge or take up whatever the latest thing is, make sure you're moving every day. Make sure you're eating whole foods as much as possible. Make sure you are spending time with your friends. Spending time with your friends, and we get more and more data on this all the time. I think that is the most underutilized health hack there is your friends and your social setting, your social network. Before you try to add some hack, if you are not seeing your friends regularly, do that. That will add years and quality to your life so much more than any hack or supplement ever will. What the people are doing in the blue zones is they're not fighting against aging. If you see some of these people, like obviously when they're 100, they're so wrinkled, but they're so beautiful because they're so happy. They are so content. They have people surrounding them who love them. They are still living in their communities. They are so deeply happy. I can't think of a more beautiful way to age than being so wrinkled from the smiling and the laughing and the living that I've done, surrounded by people I like, as opposed to spending all my time and money trying to fight something that I can't actually fight and ending up looking weird. My encouragement to you is if you feel like you are trying to stop the aging process, I'm going to invite you to pause and really get honest and clear about what is driving that, because what's driving a lot of that is not internal. It is external stuff that we have internalized that we now are, again, we're trying to uphold these like completely unrealistic beauty standards. If you want to spend less time doing that, and you want to spend more time actually living and learning how to rest and making time for your friends, because those things do make you feel much better, I want to invite you to join me inside of the Effortless Energy Reset. We're going to take 30 seconds so you can learn a little bit more about it, and then we'll be right back. Feeling tired all the time isn't normal. It's your body's way of whispering, or sometimes yelling, "Help!" And it's time to start paying attention. My Effortless Energy Reset is a 6-week online program that helps you unlock more energy, deeper sleep, and finally make time for yourself by learning to decode your body's unique language. It's simple, practical, and fits into your busy life and will actually help you shorten your to-do list, not add to it. And right now, when you use the promo code FATIGUEFIXER, you'll save $50 off your enrollment. Join today at fatiguefixer.ca/reset and start feeling like yourself again. To wrap up today's episode about, again, the one where you stop trying to fight the aging process. If you are in the dip, right? If you're in your 40s and 50s, you're like, I do not feel like myself. I don't feel good. I don't like it. I want to invite you to ride out the dip. Go back to your basic habits, your basic behaviors. Really examine your beliefs around aging and where those come from, because again, a lot of those are not yours. They don't belong to you, but you have internalized them and now you're trying to uphold them. So where do you need to create a new vision or a new version of aging that feels authentic and like you? How can you surround yourself or look at people who are aging in the way that you would like to age? Because aging is not something to fight. It's not a good use of your time. It's not a good use of your energy. It's not a good use of your money. It is something that we need to learn to honor. You do not need to feel like yourself again. You need to honor that when you don't feel like yourself, you are likely in a space of transition and growth. And there is a new version of you that is coming and evolving. And that is a beautiful thing. Right? When I was with my friends this weekend, I didn't wish we were all 22 again. We had an amazing time together when we were in our 20s, but we bring something new and different to the table, and that is okay. That is beautiful. And my hope for myself and my hope for you is that in 5 to 10 years from now, you don't feel like yourself because you're going to feel like the next version of yourself. And what a beautiful opportunity it is to get to grow and evolve instead of trying to stay stuck in this place, because you can't. When your forehead is wrinkling and maybe you're gaining weight and you're not feeling like yourself, I want you to remember that you are growing into a new version of yourself. She's probably wiser. She's probably more grounded. She's probably way more satisfied. She may be softer. She may be heavier. She may be more wrinkled. But what if we stopped trying to chase and maintain youth and we started celebrating our growth and celebrating change? Because it's going to happen no matter how hard you try to fight it. And it'll feel a lot nicer if you allow it to happen. That's my wish for you. Let's stop trying to fight the aging process. It's a battle we are going to lose. And I personally cannot wait to see the wisdom and the beauty of the women my age and older as we continue to get older and wiser. I think that is something we should all be excited for and celebrate. I will see you right back here in 2 weeks. I know your time is precious, so it means so much to me that you're here. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a woman in your life who could use a little extra energy and encouragement today. It's a small way to show her you care, because we're all in this together. Wondering what the next step is? Find out what's really draining your energy by taking my fatigue fingerprint quiz at fatiguefixer.ca/quiz. You'll discover which of the 5 most common types of fatigue you're dealing with, like frazzled fatigue, where your body's exhausted but your mind won't turn off, or drained fatigue, where no amount of sleep ever feels like enough. Your results will include recommended labs to ask your doctor about, plus my top suggestions for habits and practices that can help you start feeling more rested, calm, and in control. Because here's the thing, being tired all the time isn't normal, and you deserve to feel like yourself again. And hey, if you've got a story to share, a question, or just something on your mind, leave me a voicemail. Your voice might even make it into a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and remember, it's not all in your head. I believe you, and we'll figure this out together. I'll see you right back here in 2 weeks.
This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.